Nice to meet you all here today. My name is Draaisma, and I am Head of Business Development at CarbonLeap. CarbonLeap is a company that focuses on reducing Scope 3 emission reductions, Scope 3 emissions. And I'll tell you a little about it a bit more later in this session. I put a one-pager in front of you all, so during the presentation, if you cannot see some of the details in the overview, feel free to reference to that. I'm going to be talking today about some of the trends in decarbonization that we're seeing. But before I start talking about what we're seeing, I'd like to ask you, the audience, about some of the decarbonization trends that you're witnessing in your own organization. So if you can, please take out your mobile phone. And go to menti.com. www.menti.com. And you can use the code 520900. So if you go to menti.com and you can use the code 520900. And you can immediately start answering the questions that you see pop up. So first question, my organization wants to reduce Scope 3 emissions above what's actually required by government. I'm guessing we have about 30 people in the room, so once we get close to that, I'll continue to the next question. I'll give you a moment to catch up. Oh, we're going quite fast. Yeah, so I see there we have a good audience today, at least a good audience related to the topic that we're talking about. We go to the next question. My organization is prioritizing green investments in OPEX, for example, through replacing molecules, or B, CAPEX, longer-term infrastructure investments. And if you're not sure, feel free to use either one. So last question is the third question is a bit technical. It's about the Science-Based Targets Initiative and its lack on mass balance or book and claim solution guidance, and whether that's slowing your organization's process towards taking climate action. Once again, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's fine. We can dive into it a bit further at the roundtable. But I see that the majority is actually affirming what we're stating here. Then a final question there becomes more interesting is my customers, our customers, if you're not specifically in a commercial role, our customers are actually willing to pay a premium for a product which has a lower carbon footprint. Option A, yes, but certainly not enough to cover all the costs. B, yes, they're willing to pay or co-pay significantly. C, no, but they do require it of me. I see that's already happening quite often. And D is, they don't ask at all about it. Give you a quick moment to run through it. Thank you all very much for participating. I've summarized the answers here. I'm guessing you can't really read them from in the back, but I'll refer to it a bit later. I think something is not going right with the presentation, so maybe we can get some assistance. So to start off with, first question was about whether your organization is actually taking action above what is required by government mandate. What we're seeing there is about a group of 20% of organizations that actually go beyond what is mandated by the government. And 80% are actually not even the laggards, but the bulk of companies, which are doing what is required of them by EU, mostly EU regulation. As I said, I think we have a room full of front runners here today. There's a strong 85% of them. So you do actually see, your companies, your organization taking action above what is mandated by the government. And then if we go to the priorities, this of course varies per modality. So if you talk about, for example, for transport, reducing transport emissions, there's a strong difference between either aviation, marine, or road emissions, where we see in marine and in aviation a longer term play, where currently the main actions that are being taken are OPEX or molecule related. And for road decarbonization, it's a bit of a mix, at least in Europe, where both electrification is happening at a pace, as well as significant investments are being made in biofuels. Going to the SBTI for insetting, which I'll go into a bit later, we do see that the lack of guidance around mass balancing and booking claim solutions is preventing a lot of companies from taking action. I think this is also echoed here by the audience, about 3/4 who are recognizing the same. And this is something I'd also be keen to discuss during the roundtable that we'll have later. Question 4 about your whether you have paying customers. We see that most part. Companies actually do ask their suppliers to have more sustainable options, but when it comes to co-investing, they're not willing to put their money where their mouth is, so to say. And this is something we've put quite central to our proposition by having a carbon bank, an online solution, which actually allows you to allocate the CO2 reduction that you take and allocate the reduction to your customers, so that they can actually use it as a reduction rather than an offset. So a little bit about CarbonLeap. CarbonLeap is a leading solution provider for Scope 3, for reducing Scope 3 emissions. We do so mainly in transport, for road, marine, and for aviation. And we do that independently, meaning we're not attached to any fuel provider or transport company. Not a shipping company, but we always look for the most efficient and cost-effective solutions for reducing your Scope 3 emissions. We try to always offer you multiple solutions and do an elaborate scoping session to make sure that the requirements actually met your sustainability criteria. So that could be geography-based, that could be modality-based, but that could also have to do with the type of allocation that you require to your customer, or the feedstock requirements that you have as an organization. We always work with independent third-party verifiers, for example, DNV or Verifavia, which ensure that what we promise to you in terms of reducing your Scope 3 emissions is actually happening. If that happens through a fuel switch, which of course happens quite often in transport, it has to do with the CO2 savings that you actually achieve by using that particular biofuel. It also has to do with ensuring that you have the right proof of sourcing, where the biofuel is actually being made, where it's being sourced from, and how it's actually burned on a ship, what type of fossil fuel it's actually replacing. So all these types of variables, the energy intensity, so to say, they all impact the eventual sustainability claim that you can make. And that's of course very important, because I think most parties here will recognize this, that transparency and credibility is very important when you're talking about taking steps to reduce emissions inside or outside even your own value chain. Which is also why, together with SAP, we've developed a carbon bank solution, which is an allocation module, blockchain-based, that stores the data, which is then not duplicable, and actually allows you to allocate that reduction to your customers. So if you have, for example, Miluni, a large commodity trader in the Netherlands, who is in tenders with large FMCG companies, and before these FMCG companies would not be willing to co-pay for the emission reduction that Miluni, as a commodity trader, is actually achieving on their routes. Having a carbon bank in place and showing these consumer-focused FMCG companies how the emission reductions actually are being allocated to them, and all the data that is underlying, providing that in a transparent way, actually gives them a much more credible story and creates a dialogue, rather than the discussion that maybe some of you will recognize, where you're in a discussion, yeah, you want us to do X, it costs Y. And it helps, I think, in these discussions if you're actually able to show your customers the benefits of what they're paying for. And this is something that we've tried to achieve through the Carbon Bank. Through this system, which I said is blockchain-based, we try to prevent as much as possible double counting and double claiming, and also double selling, because this credibility and trustworthiness of the system is extremely important. The system of co-claiming and co-paying is something that's been proven very valuable to us, and perhaps could also be so to you. So I went over this a little bit. For us, it's always very important to state that we work for the Scope 3 owner, meaning we are not hired by any shipping company or transport company or fuel provider that we work on their behalf. We work independently and always look for the best solution that matches your sustainability criteria. Thus aligning your ambition, your sustainability ambition, with action. And these are some of the questions that our third-party verifiers actually ask when it's about what actually are the savings that the intervention has achieved. Where did the intervention take place? What is the net attributable effect of the intervention? Is it in line with the desired effect? So do we actually do what we promised you? And are all the previous steps correctly categorized and logged? I went into this a little bit. The Carbon Bank solution is our allocation module, where we allow you to allocate the emission reduction to your customers, and have a system in place which prevents double claiming, double counting, and double selling. Meaning, because we have this system, there is actually no free riding possible, and you're actually in that discussion, hopefully. And if you think this is a bunch of BS, I'd like to hear from you why during our roundtable, why it actually allows you to allocate the reduction to your customers and actually have a co-payment system in place. That's my presentation for you today. Thank you very much.